wasn't eavesdropping. I was just heading to the laundry room with a basket of towels when I heard Trevor's voice float out from the living room. "Sweetheart, use Mom's card. She's got about 200 grand on it." His voice was light, joking even, like it was nothing, like it was his. Grace laughed. Not the kind of laugh you'd expect after hearing something outrageous, no. It was easy, familiar. She said something I couldn't quite catch, and then, heels clicking, walked right past me at the edge of the hallway. She didn't even glance my way as she slid her sunglasses on and disappeared out the front door with my card in her purse. I stood there for a moment, the towel in my hands suddenly feeling heavier than it should. The dryer hummed beside me, but I couldn't hear anything except that sentence playing again and again in my head. I went back to my room, shut the door softly, and sat down on the edge of my bed. I opened the banking app. The number blinked on the screen, 203-718-46. It wasn't just money. It was 35 years of saying no to myself. No vacations. No new clothes unless something tore. Coffee from home, not cafes. Every coupon clipped. Every dollar tucked away in envelopes and later carefully moved into savings. I stared at that balance until my thumb hovered over the freeze card button. Then I pressed it. No sound. No alert. Just a quiet little message. Your card has been frozen. I set the phone down and folded the towel I'd been carrying. Then another. I stacked them all in the linen cupboard and went to the kitchen to make tea. Grace's lipstick was still on the rim of a glass she'd left by the sink. I rinsed it, washed it properly, and placed it in the drying rack. Neither of them said a word to me when they returned that evening. Trevor dropped his keys on the counter. Grace opened the fridge. No mention of the card. And I didn't bring it up. The phone rang the next afternoon. The phone rang just after lunch. I had just finished wiping down the table, the scent of vinegar and lemon cleaner still lingering in the air. "Mom? What did you do?" Trevor's voice was sharp, like he'd been holding back a storm, and now it was coming through the line. I didn't answer right away. I sat down at the kitchen table and waited. "Why is the card frozen?" he continued. Grace just tried to check out. She was standing at the register for 20 minutes while the cashier kept saying, "Declined." You humiliated her. I could hear Grace in the background, furious, her voice rising as she took the phone. 3 times. I tried 3 times, Lorraine. Do you know how that looks? I had a full cart, phone's a new bag perfume, that espresso machine Trevor's been eyeing. It was almost 91,000 total. I had to walk away while the girl at the register looked at me like I was trying to steal. I closed my eyes listening to her breathless outrage. She didn't pause long enough to let me speak. "You knew we were using it," she snapped. "You never said anything before. What now? You're going to punish us. You don't even use that money. You just let it sit there like some museum exhibit." My fingers brushed over the edge of the table. I spoke slowly. I didn't agree to any of that. There was silence for half a second. Then a scoff. "Wow. So this is who you are now, after everything we've done for you. You're just going to sit on all that money like some dragon and let us look like fools in public." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just pressed the red button and ended the call. I stood up, rinsed my teacup, and set it carefully in the rack next to the one Grace had used yesterday. That night, through the wall, I heard them whispering. Their voices came through the wall, low but sharp, slicing right through the quiet of my room. I wasn't trying to listen, but the insulation in this house was never good, and tonight it was thinner than ever. "She doesn't pay rent," Grace hissed. "We've supported her for years. And now she's freezing the card like we're strangers. She acts like she's doing us a favor by being here." I sat in the dark, the bedside lamp still off. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I let the words settle the way dust does. Quiet, steady, and everywhere. When the house finally fell silent, I got up, reached for my old notebook, and opened to a clean page. I started writing. Dates, amounts, utility bills in my name, grocery receipts. The summer I watched their daughter for 2 straight months while they reset their marriage in Cabo. I didn't write any commentary, just numbers and facts. In the morning, I put on my coat and walked the 12 blocks to the bank. It was cold but dry, and the walk helped settle my thoughts. I sat across from a young woman in a gray suit who called me Ms. Geller and offered me tea. I declined. I asked to move the funds to a new private account, requested that all physical mail be redirected to a P.O. box, and ordered a new card with no joint access. Then I asked for something else, a printed record of all withdrawals and charges from the last 3 years. She raised her eyebrows but nodded. "We can mail that to your new address or print it now." "Print it now," I said. It took a while, but I left with a manila envelope tucked under my arm. My pace on the way home was slower. Not tired, just deliberate. I stopped once at the corner store to pick up carrots and broth. By noon, I was in the kitchen chopping quietly. I stirred the pot and set the table. No one joined me. That afternoon, I booked an appointment to see a condo. The condo was about 20 minutes outside town, far enough to feel separate, but close enough if I ever needed groceries, a post office, or a bus line. The agent met me in the parking lot, a polite young man in pressed slacks and sleeves, too short for his arms. He handed me a clipboard, but I didn't need it. I already knew what I was looking for. He unlocked the front door and stepped aside. 2 bedrooms, south-facing windows. "Perfect for guests or hobbies," he said, smiling. The walls were clean, soft beige. The floor creaked a little near the hallway, but the light, my goodness. The light spilled in through tall windows, like it belonged there. I stepped into the main room, already imagining the sewing machine by the far corner, angled to catch the morning sun. A narrow bookshelf could fit between the wall and the sliding door. My husband's photo would go on the ledge beside the kitchen pass-through. He'd always liked to keep me in view while I cooked. The second bedroom had just enough space for a daybed and a small dresser. The closet was deeper than expected. I ran my fingers along the doorframe, taking in the scent of wood and something clean. Not lemon, just space. "There's a washer and dryer in unit," the agent added. "Appliances included. Utilities are low. A lot of retired folks here." I nodded, walking through each room slowly, silently. I didn't speak until we were back at the kitchen counter. I pulled out my checkbook and wrote the deposit amount without blinking. "All cash," I said. "Title in my name only. No one else." He hesitated just a fraction, but nodded and took the check. "Move-in is March 1st, he said, stapling the paperwork. "We'll take care of everything on our end." I folded the receipt and placed it in my purse. The front door clicked softly behind me as I stepped back out into the sun. When I got home, Grace was complaining about the heater. The furnace sputtered around 6 a.m., just as the sun was rising. By the time I came into the kitchen, Grace was wrapped in a thick blanket, stomping around in wool socks and slamming drawers as she searched for instant coffee. "It's freezing in here," she announced to no one in particular. Trevor was on the phone with the repair service, pacing and irritated. "They can't come out until Friday," he said. "And that's just to look at it." Grace let out an exaggerated sigh. "Unbelievable. We're going to freeze all week because this house falls apart the second she locks up her money." She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't have to. I walked to the hallway closet and pulled out my small ceramic space heater, the one I'd use during winter shifts when the office wouldn't warm past 65. I carried it into the kitchen and set it on the counter. "You can use this in the meantime," I said quietly. Grace glanced at it like I'd offered her a broken toaster. "It'll barely heat a closet." She walked past me without another word, muttering something I didn't catch. I didn't respond. I went back to the laundry room and resumed folding towels, warm from the dryer, soft and clean. I stacked them neatly, took a deep breath, and sat for a moment on the low bench near the washer. Then I reached for my phone. I opened the weather app and tapped the saved location for the new condo. Des Moines, IA 71, indoor sunlight, streaming across southern windows. Light breeze from the east. I stared at that screen for a long time. Then I closed the app and finished the laundry. I brought Grace's towel to the hallway hook and hung it with care. She didn't thank me. She didn't even notice. That evening, I started filling a small box in my closet, just a few books and notebooks. I started with the easy things. Books I hadn't touched in a while, but always meant to read again. Notebooks with my handwriting, some half full, others just waiting. A canvas bag with seed packets I'd saved over the years, basil, marigold, cherry tomatoes. I'd always imagined planting them in a small balcony garden someday. I pulled out the photo of my husband from the back of the top drawer. The frame was scuffed along the edge where it had once fallen during a move. I wrapped it carefully in a soft blue scarf and placed it upright between the books. The slippers went last. They were a gift from Grace last Christmas. Navy with white fur trim already fraying along the edges. She'd given them to me while glancing at her phone. No card, no warmth. I'd worn them for a week, maybe 2, then tucked them under the bed and forgot about them. I carried them to the trash bin, pressed the lid down slowly, and didn't look back. The rest of the house was quiet that evening. Trevor had fallen asleep in front of the TV. The light from the screen flickered down the hall. I'd just zipped the first suitcase when there was a knock at the door. Lorraine. It was Grace. She didn't wait for a response before pushing the door open an inch. "We need the card back. It's not fair that you're just sitting on money while we're struggling." I stood beside the suitcase, one hand still on the zipper. "It was never yours," I said. She blinked. Not angry. This time. Confused, maybe. "You're seriously going to do this?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move toward her. I just stepped forward, reached for the doorknob and closed the door gently between us. She didn't knock again. The next morning I called the taxi company and gave them an address. I woke before the alarm. The house was still, the kind of quiet that feels like a held breath. I moved slowly, not wanting to wake anyone, not out of courtesy, but because I wanted to leave cleanly, without conflict, without performance. I showered, dressed in layers, and tied my shoes tight. I rolled the 2 suitcases to the door, careful not to bump the walls. Everything I needed was inside them, nothing more. On the hallway table, I placed the house key. I laid it beside the folded note I'd written the night before on lined stationery. The writing was neat, deliberate. "Thank you for letting me stay. I hope the house stays warm." Next to it, I set down a manila folder stapled in the corner. Inside were the bank statements, utility receipts, grocery bills all labeled by month. Every dollar I'd spent for this household, every meal I'd paid, for every load of laundry I'd done while they worked late. And on top of the stack, a photocopy of the cashier's check, $50,000, written out to Trevor Geller 4 years ago when they couldn't close on the house without help. I didn't leave any explanations, just numbers, just truth. I zipped my coat, pulled the gloves from my pocket, and stepped out the front door. The sky was still a deep gray blue, not yet morning, not quite night. The air was sharp against my face. The taxi waited at the curb with its engine low and steady. The driver helped with the suitcases, his breath fogging in the cold, as he asked airport, "No," I said. "East Edge Apartments, off Riverside." He nodded. I got in and the door closed with a soft click behind me. As we pulled away, I didn't look back. The porch light stayed off. No movement in the windows. By the time the sky turned pale, we were already crossing the river. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and polished wood. The kind of clean that comes from new beginnings, not bleach. I unlocked the door with the key they'd given me at closing my key and stepped inside with both suitcases trailing behind me. I took my time. I opened the windows just an inch to let the breeze through. It carried the faint scent of river water and dry leaves. I unpacked slowly, one item at a time. Not because I was tired, but because there was no one rushing me. The photo of my husband was the first thing I placed. It went on the windowsill in the living room, angled, so the sunlight touched it just before noon. I stood there for a moment, resting a hand on the frame. The kitchen was small, but bright. I filled the kettle, set it on the stove, and waited for the whistle. When the tea was ready, I poured a cup and carried it to the balcony, where I'd already placed the rocking chair. It creaked gently when I sat down. From the second floor, I could see the bend in the river, where the trees leaned toward the water. A couple walked by with a dog. Further down, a boy skipped stones and cheered when one bounced 3 times. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I let it ring. It buzzed again, a call this time. Trevor. I didn't move. Then a text. We saw the papers you left. Didn't expect that. You could have at least said something. That was Grace. Her tone always slipped through, even in writing. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to explain. A minute later, another buzz. Then nothing. I picked up the phone, turned it off, and slid it into the drawer beneath the sink. The silence that followed felt neither heavy nor strange. It felt earned. That evening, I opened the second suitcase and pulled out a small clay pot and a packet of tomato seeds. The days settled into rhythm without much effort. I didn't need to plan them. They unfolded gently, one into the next, like warm towels from the dryer. In the mornings, I walked by the river path. The same couple with the golden retriever passed me most days, always with a nod. Sometimes the dog paused at my feet, tail wagging, waiting for a scratch behind the ears. Back home, I checked on the tomatoes. They'd begun to sprout small green promises, reaching toward the sun. I turned the pots slightly every other day so the stems would grow straight. I listened to the radio while I knitted, nothing dramatic, just local programs, music from decades ago. Soft voices talking about weather and books. I read a little each afternoon, novels I'd always meant to finish now, with no reason not to. Every few days I checked my account. $111,000. Still steady, still mine. I had no plans to touch most of it, not yet. Maybe someday I'd visit Oregon or Maine. Maybe I wouldn't. For now, I had enough. There were no voicemails, no missed calls, no surprise knocks at the door. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night without waking up in the dark, wondering if I'd done something wrong. I hadn't. The apartment didn't echo, even though it was quiet. It was the kind of quiet that held space for thoughts instead of drowning them. Some evenings, I sat on the balcony with a blanket across my lap, watching the lights flicker on across the river. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel victorious either. I just felt still. I finished knitting a scarf and started a second one, no one in mind to give it to. I put it in the drawer beside the photo of my husband. He would have liked it here. Not the silence, but the calm. Spring came quietly. The kind that crept in without ceremony, no sudden bloom, just a slow warming of the wind and the soft insistence of birds at the window. I opened them most mornings now, letting the air move through the rooms, lifting the curtains ever so slightly, like someone reaching in just to say hello. One morning, a letter arrived. The envelope was white, the handwriting printed in careful type. I opened it over the kitchen counter with the same small knife I used to slice apples. This letter confirms the change of address for account ending in 3028. Your records have been updated. I read it once, then folded it and slipped it into the folder where I kept the condo deed and the last copy of the account statement. The folder fit neatly in the second drawer of my desk, tucked between a stack of envelopes and a small box of stamps. I didn't think about the old house anymore. I hadn't dreamed of it, hadn't wondered who cooked in the kitchen now, or whether the heater ever got fixed. I didn't picture Trevor pacing the hallway or Grace on the phone. If they talked about me, I didn't know. If they missed me, I didn't ask. And I didn't need to. Some afternoons, I sat in the rocking chair by the balcony, the radio murmuring from the kitchen. I'd hum along sometimes. I'd water the tomatoes. I'd write a note on the back of a grocery list reminding myself to buy more tea. I started a new book and didn't rush to finish it. The days came and went with the soft finality of pages turning. No grand gestures, no big endings, just the space to breathe. And in that space, things began to grow.